Well, hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our Center Court panel on careers with your MBA. We have three terrific schools and representatives from those schools to talk about career outcomes from their MBA programs and MBAs in general. The three schools represented today at this session are Carnegie Mellon Tepper School, UNC's Kenan-Flagler, and Notre Dame's Mendoza. And let me introduce our three panelists. From Carnegie Mellon, we have Stephen Reckes. Is it Reckes the right pronunciation, Stephen?
Rockets.
Rockus. Okay.
Rockets, like a rocket.
Rockets, as if you're a rocket taking off, which is what
There
the
you
MBA degree does.
go.
And Stephen is executive director of the Masters Career Center. Welcome. We have Lisa Thompson, who's director of MBA coaching at UNC Kenan-Flagler. And we have Mikhail Elliott, who's senior associate director of MBA admissions from Notre Dame Mendoza. So, Stephen, let me start with you at the Tepper School. Give us a sense of your role there and what the school's MBA program is like.
Sure, thanks, John, and welcome to everyone who's listening today. We're excited to be here. I'm Steve Rockus, executive director of the Masters Career Center at the Tepper School. My team and I provide career services to our full-time and part-time MBAs, as well as several of our specialty master's programs, including business analytics, management, and product management. I've been a Tepper in this role. Well, I've been a Tepper for more than 20 years. I've been in this role for about 15 years. So seen a lot come and go in the MBA landscape.
That you
Uh,
have.
yeah, and to talk a bit about our program, we are a very well-known program to be analytically rigorous, right? So that's something that, we were one of the founding schools to turn kind of business into a science, for lack of a better word. And what we promote now is what's called the intelligent future, which is up above me here on the slide. And that is combining the analytical rigor, the data, the technology with human-centered decision making. So our students tend to be attracted or want to grow their skills in analytical problem solving. And then they're also getting a solid foundation in human-centered decision making at the same time.
Great. That's a great synopsis. And Lisa at UNC Kenan-Flagler.
Hi, thanks for having me today. So, my role is the Director of MBA Career Coaching. So, I manage the team of career coaches that help our students land their next exciting post-MBA job across all the formats of our MBA program. So, that's our full-time MBA, an evening MBA, a weekend MBA, a Charlotte cohort based in Charlotte, North Carolina, aside from Chapel Hill here. So, just a short trip down the road and also an online MBA called MBA UNC. So our program, all of our programs are similar in a lot of ways that we focus on the core foundations of developing leaders for the future of work. And we have been in the midst of some very exciting redesigns across several of our programs. And so to emphasize a programmatic redesign of our full-time MBA, where we're really focusing on targeted career pathways and helping students come in and see how they can blend their curriculum with their career goals to be more intentional about all of the things an MBA can bring. So more targeted networking, more integration with faculty that includes the use of AI and those great future of work skills. And then really helping them feel that they've developed that alumni network going through the courses. We've also just opened a very brand new building here. So I hope everyone comes to visit us, including you, John. You haven't made it yet.
Indeed.
We would love for you to come.
I
It's
want to
very
come.
exciting. It houses our MBA programs, but also our undergrad business and a lot of our centers. So it's an exciting time of change and growth here at Chapel Hill.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Mikhail, what's going on at Notre Dame Mendoza?
Awesome. So again, my name is Mikhail Elliott. I'm Senior Associate Director of Graduate Admissions. So I will be speaking on behalf of our career team today. However, we do have a fabulous career center who supports our graduate programs. So that includes our career coaches as well as our alumni engagement and our employer relations team to provide kind of multi-layered support to our students as they are in the search for their next step in their career. One of the taglines for our MBA program is to grow the good in business. To me, this really means that our purpose is to create leaders that are going to leave the world a better place than they found it. And so, of course, there's many MBA programs out there that can teach you generally about leadership, but we also take the approach that you'll be thinking about leadership in all of those decisions, thinking about how your choices impact people, impact jobs. And so one of the other benefits of our program is around community and community building. We have a smaller program, and so that really creates opportunities for experiential learning that we're very proud of. And so I think those are a few of the things that we're really known for and some of our strengths.
Now, typically, MBAs go into three core industries: consulting, banking, and technology. But of course, the range of industries and roles varies far more greatly than the three I just mentioned. I wonder if each of you might go through what industries are hiring your MBAs these days, how has the roles evolved, and how has this changed over the last 5 years? So, Mikhail, let's stay with you at Notre Dame.
Sure, of course. So in finance, we see IB and corporate finance as kind of more of our strengths. In strategy, of course, you have the option of consulting and internal strategy within technology and general management as well. We also have outside of consulting finance, we see many people going into operations, brand management, marketing management roles, internal strategy, as well as product management and program management roles. And so while we also have this kind of pathway structure to our career support with the finance, strategy, and technology pathways, we kind of see those laying on top of each other because, of course, many of those overlap, and students can pursue all of the resources available, regardless of which pathway they are pursuing.
That's great. Now, Lisa, you're on the front lines as Director of MBA Coaching at Kenan-Flagler. So you're probably helping students grapple through, okay, what field should I choose? And ultimately, what will it take to get there? Give us some insight of what the choices are there.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I would say yes, we have all those large three industries represented, and that decision making starts with students saying, do I want to do this because it's what I actually want to do, or is it just what I think an MBA should do, right? So I think from that first step, we have a high percentage of success there. In the last several years, financial services has been the highest, followed by consulting as second for us. But making sure even those students that want that industry know they want it for what the job is and the right reason. And that's what a lot of our coaching fits in, and we have some great career clubs as well, so that students know what they're getting into. And here at Kenan-Flagler, a lot of the conversations as well are we have a lot of amazing centers that specialize in other sectors. So we have the Wood Center for Real Estate that draws a lot of people here to study real estate. We have a great center for the business of healthcare, and healthcare is typically our third or fourth highest industry represented. We also have an energy center that's very strong as well. And so we really help students see I can do a blend, as Mikhail mentioned, of is it real estate investment banking, right? Because I can blend both interests, or do I really have a more targeted interest? So when we have those centers, those have strong corporate partnerships as well and faculty research. So a lot of students get very excited when they're here about those extra opportunities. And so for us, it's helping them understand what the market is. Maybe it's a location difference for you based on what industry you want, and so that they are going towards the right thing. So yeah, in addition to the top three, we see very strong placement rates amongst all of our students where we have centers represented.
Now, how early do you need to know what field you want to enter in an MBA program? Should you know that before you even show up on campus? or is that something that evolves in your first year? And is there any difference in the success rates of people who know earlier versus later? Lisa, since you coach people, let me ask you that.
Sure. Great question. If only we all had career clarity that lasted, right? We could all take
Indeed.
a lesson in that. For an MBA, I would say number one, they had a reason to apply, right? Especially when we're talking about full-time programs, we're all making an active choice to leave the thing we were doing and come and try to learn something else. And we all know the great benefits of doing that, but it is a choice. So I think certain industries, I'll call out investment banking as one. You really need to know coming in if you want investment banking because the recruiting happens very early and it's also very tailored and structured. So you just sort of need to know you have an interest for that. And our admissions team, as well as all the great resources, always direct people right to Poets and Quants for all the articles to help them learn what is it actually like to work in that field. So that one especially, I need to know early. I would say consulting comes second behind because of the structured nature of recruiting there. So there's that added layer. I have to tell my story about why I want it, but I have to get through a very particular interview. So maybe it's a case interview or a technical interview, and I have to find time to plan for that in addition to doing well in my classes, adjusting to a new place, meeting new friends. So there's just an added layer. For most other industries, I think you have time to explore the classes as well. And so I would say, yes, remember what you said in admissions, right, of what led you here. But if you feel pulled through another course or a club event or a workshop, that something is really calling at you of, wow, I didn't know energy could do that. That sounds really exciting. Try to find a way to explore that as well. Because in MBA, yes, we focus a lot on that first post MBA job, but we're really trying to set people up for a lifetime of career success. And this is the great ground to be able to start those coaching conversations of what do I want to do next and what do I think I might want to do longer term.
Yeah, the other reason that you need to know in investment banking and consulting early is because those firms, at least the best of them, like to hire from the internship pool. So you want to land an internship, you want to come back with a full-time job offer in your pocket and sail through that second year without anxiety, I think, which would be a really good strategy for people. Now, Stephen, at Tepper, I wonder how the more quantitative nature of your MBA program informs career choices.
Good question. We will attract students who have a strong quantitative background, and then we also attract many who don't, and they purposely seek us out because they want to develop it. So,
Indeed.
um, I see a range of things. I see a range of students who create a formula that I could never figure out on what they think their success is going to be. There's a few of those based on all these factors that aren't necessarily measurable at times. And, then there's others who, have strong soft skills. So, we're always developing something in our students, whether it's their soft skills or whether it's their quantitative skills. I think it naturally draws a lot of people to fields like consulting and tech and banking, where that skill set is, very, very common. But honestly, I see a range. I think when I first started working at Tepper 2 decades ago, perhaps the stereotype of a quantity nerd was a little more accurate than it is now. I think we definitely have a broader swath, and they're pursuing all the same industries my colleagues have talked about: finance, banking, consulting. And I'll give a shout out at Carnegie Mellon for entrepreneurship as well. We have a very strong and solid entrepreneurship center based in the business school, which allows cross-campus collaboration from all disciplines. So I want to give a shout out to that too.
I've been in that center. It's fantastic. And I love the fact that it's a university-wide center housed in the business school because, as you point out, it leads to a lot of innovative collisions among different, graduate students and undergrads from the different schools and departments across Carnegie Mellon.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just organic. I'll tell a student, just go over there and start talking to people. And the next thing when I see them, they're on a project.
it's cool. I've played with some prototypes out of that lab in past years, and man, it's a really inspirational place to work. So Stephen, how does career support look like from day one? I know that in many schools, the contact occurs even before one hits the campus. Give us a sense of the chronology. What can you expect as an incoming student
Mhm.
in terms of career support at Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah. It is earlier. It's much earlier than students may think. I think we're probably all in that situation. I see nods, but basically, as soon as they pay their deposit and have an email address, we're sending them a welcome message and sharing with them prior to our welcome weekend, even, which is at the end of March. We encourage as many who can come, to come to that. We are messaging them of here's what your timeline is going to look like. We're going to start working with you intensively in May and June, if you wish. If your time doesn't permit that, to start to develop, hear about your career plans, what you may be looking at, getting your resume together, because there's summer events that they need to be aware of often, depending on the industry. So if May and June aren't possible, then we back to, July and August, we have maybe 10% of our class begins the work when they arrive for base camp. And we're pretty clear, we're going to support you through this, but you've got less time than your classmates had. So it's definitely a front-loaded thing because recruiting is much earlier now and students need to be ready.
When do the first recruiters come to campus?
First recruiters will come to campus. We don't restrict internship recruiting anymore because it's happening everywhere off campus. We used
Right.
to have more guidelines around doing that later in the year, but it can begin in September. And so we just make sure that if you're pursuing X, Y, and Z, no, you may be in front of recruiters sooner. If you're pursuing A, B, and C, you probably have more time. We really try to share that because otherwise they may get freaked out for no reason, or they may be underprepared. We don't want to see them.
Yeah, now for you folks out there, listen to this. You're going to hit campus, you're going to go right into the core curriculum, which frankly is the most demanding and rigorous of all the courses you will take. And within weeks, you're going to be going to receptions by companies that want to interview you, line you up for internship possibilities. So it happens so fast, and it happens at a time when, the workload is the heaviest. So it's a pretty big deal. And obviously, people go to business school and get an MBA for these careers. So, you have to balance those careers with all the coursework you're taking. Lisa, bring us through how you support students in their career journey.
Sure, yeah, thanks. I know, I think it's 2 years is long, but it's really short when we talk about that timeline from admission to when they're starting to meet companies, right? And I think I'm glad we're expressing that because that's the thing I hope everyone knows. You jump in, you're jumping off the deep end, right? You're getting really prepared. So we start to reach out to students as soon as they're admitted. We also have an admitted student event, and ours is in early April. So really trying to meet everyone who's ready to get started early. And we provide a lot of the tactics like our resume template and things for them to work on, hopefully before they arrive to campus. And we send them some industry specific information and we connect them with our student clubs so that if they know in advance, like we were speaking about earlier, that they want some particular clubs, they can go ahead and meet some of those second year student leaders to start getting plugged into the network. And then our orientation is typically in around early August. We will do a lot of career sessions during that time, in addition to all of the other things they need to do in orientation. And then we partner with our career clubs for weekly meetings. So they hear from us as career coaches at the same time as the club leaders. And every club has a different time for their career lab, we call them, where they can pick and choose, right, which industries they want. We do a lot to try to encourage them if they are in that deciding phase to go to a few. But since you just mentioned how busy they're going to be, we also try to get them to say, even if I'm exploring, I can't really explore everything successfully. So what can we do to help them? They have mandatory coaching appointments with our team to really be able to figure out how they can manage all of this and still be prepared for those company presentations, which again, for us start in September. So it's typically about a month after they're here to get prepared, and then it continues on. So very similar. And then we continue to check in. We do assign them coaches by sector. so that again, the person they're seeing all the time is the person who knows where they are on their journey, but we allow them to meet with everyone, right? Because sometimes we want different perspectives. Sometimes we're pursuing multiple things. Sometimes I want whoever is available that time I need to stop in the office and ask a question. And so it's a blend of all of those things to help them be prepared. And then it literally lasts a lifetime. So lifetime coaching that we hope they come back and circle back and have made such a strong relationship that again we're seeing that first post MBA job and then we're seeing the next ones as well. That's always really fun when you get to experience that long journey of MBA success.
Yeah, Lisa, I like you mentioned the clubs because, as an applicant, you may not realize that there are many clubs on business school campus that will support your career interests. And the best example is a consulting club where second year MBAs who've already interned at McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte, or whatnot will help you prepare for the case interviews that you'll have to undergo to get an internship and a job offer. And since they've just run the mill and done it, and they understand what the culture of these different firms are like and what appeals to them, that real one-on-one counsel from a second year MBA in a consulting club could be vital to your success. And it's something you can't get anywhere else. Um, Now, Mikhail, give us a little lowdown on the career support at Mendoza.
Sure. So, like my colleagues here, we have also found that summer prep is becoming more and more critical to student success. And so we actually require our students to meet with their career coaches one-on-one twice before the program even starts. This just kind of prepares our students for the recruiting process, whether that be them pursuing conferences during the summer. So we are a Forte partner, so we have several students who attend a pre-MBA conference where they have the opportunity to engage with employers and learn generally more about different pathways post-MBA. They might also be connecting with our different clubs and organizations to talk about preparing for casing or finance technicals before the program even begins. And so they're starting to build those connections, those relationships, but also understand the intensity of which they'll be needing to prepare before the program even starts. Once the program does begin, we have several sessions during our orientation, but one of which is our career leadership launch. And so not only are students learning more in depth about the recruiting process for their specific areas of interest, but they're also learning more about leadership from the very beginning of their program and also seeking to understand what type of leader they want to be and the general leadership trajectory for their industry and function. And so after that, of course, they'll have one-on-one sessions based on their industry or functional areas of interest. However, like Lisa mentioned, they are available to all of the resources and all of the individuals on our career coaching team to gain different perspectives. We find that students who meet the most with our career coaching team seem to have the best outcomes, funny enough. And so we do encourage students to keep consistent contact even though they have kind of a minimal amount of connections that they'll have to make with our career team. And then, of course, we'll have some other resources that they'll be able to utilize after graduation.
Now, if you're sitting back and you're listening to all this and you say, "My goodness, that's a lot of emphasis on getting a job and pursuing a career," and let me tell you this: the secret sauce of the success of an MBA program is the professional development and the career support you get. You can go to graduate school in any other school or department at a university, and you'll get none of this. Only in the business school will you get this emphasis on making sure you're making the right choices and making the right moves to get to your goal, which underscores the fact that a business school doesn't believe its job is complete when it hands you its degree. The job is complete when you land that job that you want. And that is a huge difference between business school and every other graduate school on a university campus. I also want to point out that there has been studies that show that while you can enter an MBA program as an explorer, meaning you don't really know what you want. The people who are most satisfied with their experience are those who kind of know what their ultimate goal is. Maybe there's a plan B, but you pretty much know what you want to get out of the MBA before you enter the program. And if you do know that, you're far more likely to get it and to be satisfied. And if you go in not really knowing and you're a little aimless, even though you told admissions you know exactly what you want to do, but you really don't, you're more likely to be disappointed. And that stands to reason because you want to get that internship that lines you up for the full-time job. And that internship is also crucial to a career switcher. And many people do go and get an MBA degree to switch careers. So that's an important element of it all. Now, one thing we didn't talk about is networking. And I wonder if you might give us a clue as to how you teach people networking because for students from other cultures, it's really difficult to build relationships only to kind of support yourself. But networking is crucial, and we know that, most people get jobs because they have a relationship with someone who gives them inside information, an inside track, or who knows them and can recommend them, as opposed to simply applying cold to an open position. So let's stay with you, Mikhail, and talk about how you teach networking to your students.
Sure. So a lot of this is organic, but we do have some sessions where we host some mock networking. And for our international students specifically, we do have some opportunities for them to learn in a more, I guess, official setting about some of the practices and the norms in the US around networking. I think that. One of the best lessons, of course, is practice, and we give plenty of opportunities for students at Mendoza. So I know that many schools have a homecoming, for example. We really view every football weekend as a homecoming with our alumni, and at Mendoza, we host Mendoza rallies where we have students, staff, faculty, and alumni come together for some meaningful networking, and we create opportunities through networking games and such so that they can really expand their network that way. Besides that, we do have a platform named Irish Compass that is our own version of LinkedIn, essentially. And so students, current students, as well as our alumni are able to raise their hand and say that they're interested in being involved in that and really be connected to all of the community across the campus, not just within Mendoza. And so students have found that to be very effective for being able to get in contact with our alumni and build those meaningful connections. Another note that I'll have for our MBA students specifically, we have an executive in residence program. And so we do have C-suite and VP level alumni who are able to not only come to talk to our students, but they actually teach a class each semester. And so they are not only able to build those connections, but they're also able to learn from their real world experiences and able to get them in contact with the right people, should that be an organization that they're interested in.
Now, you used the phrase Irish compass. Now, let's let people know that you don't have to be from Ireland or have an Irish background to take advantage of that. That's a reference to basically the nickname uh, that is used at Notre Dame. Am I right?
You are correct.
The
Our
Fighting
mascot is
Irish.
we are the Fighting Irish. We are also a Catholic institution. Know that you do not have to be Catholic or Irish to join us here at
Or
Mendoza
want to fight.
or want to fight at all. However, you do have to have some grit in order to successfully make it through our programs.
You used the phrase mock networking, which I actually never heard of, but what obviously it means is that you're practicing how to have an informal conversation with someone you don't know for the purposes of networking, right?
Exactly. And this is more so to practice things like your elevator pitch, to really
Right.
identify those things that are important in storytelling and identifying what your brand is as you are going to be meeting people. You only have a short amount of time sometimes to tell that initial story about yourself. And so we do create those opportunities for students to practice that so that when they do have those more organic opportunities or even the more structured opportunities to network, they have that story down and they are ready to make an impact and connect with others.
Go to law school, go to med school, go to a school of computer science or engineering. You're not going to get any of this, okay? Lisa, how do you approach networking?
Yeah, very similar here as well to try to get all of our students to understand the great network that they are joining as a part of UNC Chapel Hill and Kenan-Flagler and put them in front of as many alumni as possible. So during our orientation, one of the career sessions we run is to make them practice their pitch. So we divide the first year class up into smaller groups and make them stand up in front of each other on their first or second day of meeting and practice in that safe environment. How do you introduce yourself? Get feedback. Also learn it's not as scary as you think it is because you learn these are really cool people that I'm surrounding myself with for the next 2 years. And you see that positive feedback as well. But you also see all the different styles. And so you start to learn very quickly, I can still be myself and share what's unique about me, but how someone might interpret that or think differently. Then also during our orientation week, we have employers come, and who we invite in that time would be what we call our alumni champions. So from our core list of employers, we invite alumni to come back who really represent the school well while they're at their company, but then want to come back and help. And so they provide what would be, I guess, a mock session, to use Mikhail's term, of what is it going to be like when companies come to campus. But those are non-evaluative conversations, but they really get to learn from. So there'll be panels of the alums to share their experiences, and then they'll have a networking that would mirror what would happen during those campus visits from companies. So they just get to practice. And then our clubs do it as well in partnership with us if there are particular things about certain industries or the way certain companies run their events to get them to practice more tailored, right? Are you going to be asked a technical question? How would you prepare for that? Are you not going to, depending on, what do I need to dress like? So we start to also go into how do you make yourself feel comfortable in networking? How do you make sure you show up properly so that you're matching the, vibe and scene of where the networking event occurs, that type of thing. Another thing I'll add is we have partnered with our International Business Association Club to do extra sessions just for them so
Mm.
that they feel it's a very safe environment for them to ask more questions than perhaps as an international student they would want to ask in the whole first year class during orientation. So we do have a separate international orientation for them that talks more about the big transition they're making and also what I call are all their superpowers that they bring from traveling all the way around the world, to be able to embark on this journey and really helping them individually partner with each other and then also with us as coaches to learn, again, what do we talk about? We have clubs that teach them about American sports. Here we are known as a basketball school, but we had a lot of chatter around our football program this past year. So trying to teach them about the sports here, and especially in this time of year, you really have to know if Carolina basketball won or lost and how they're faring. So, if it's not a sport they're familiar with, we give them tips on how I can know if we won and how I should know how to talk about that, because certainly you'll be asked about that a lot in your networking. So it's the how do I introduce myself, but how do I have that small talk conversation that might be something that's very different for me, especially if I'm coming from a different country.
Yeah, I love that you're having the interaction with alums, but you're essentially creating safe spaces for people to practice with no real consequence when they screw up. So that's super helpful for when the real thing happens. Stephen, give us the lowdown on networking at Tepper.
Absolutely. So, um, much like what my colleagues have said here, we started intensively during our base camp or orientation program in the summer. And, we all recognize we're going to have a spectrum of networking skills. We have folks who have never networked. Maybe they're from a culture where it's disrespectful to try to network with people who are above you in their corporate hierarchy. And then we have people who have done it and are, fine, or they might need tweaking for the MBA environment. So what we do, in addition to general preparation on things like elevator pitch and your tell me about yourself, TMAY, which is a little longer version of your elevator pitch, depending on the situation, we work with them to get those refined, and then we immediately put it into practice. Practice makes perfect, as others have said. And one of the things we've done, we found to be successful, is we break them out into groups with their assigned coach to represent, the way you may introduce yourself to someone in investment banking might be different than how you would do it for product management or for consulting or for, entrepreneurship. So we work with those students to make sure they know the sort of industry nuances in networking. Business casual in banking, is there such a thing, right? Versus business casual in tech, right? So we're trying to kind of hammer all those facts home to them. And then at the end of our base camp, traditionally for the past few years, our student government and clubs have come back from their summer internships, our second years, and hosted a mock career fair where they go to put this all into perspective. So this second years returning will have a booth representing the company where they interned, and they'll pretend to be a company rep and have the students come through and introduce themselves and give them feedback on the spot. And we sort of float around and help do that as well. So that sort of wraps up base camp nicely in that you've just participated in a career fair. And if we get feedback, oh, I had to stand in line too long or what, that's what happens at a career fair. We're trying to make it realistic here. So then as we get into the year, we offer Friday drop-in sessions for small groups or individuals, and we work in tandem with our clubs, like others here have said, to continue then the nuances of the various professional industry prep.
That's great. Now, one of the big trends in business education, I'd say in the last probably 15, maybe even 20 years, has been the increase in experiential learning. And here's what I mean by that. These are projects or assignments that MBAs have in teams with organizations. Could be a nonprofit, could be a company, could be a startup, an early stage company, where you're doing actual work under the supervision of a faculty member, and then you would present your solutions or recommendations to a panel that would actually include executives or leaders from that given organization or company. And what's great about experiential learning is that it gives you something to talk about when you do have an interview, above and beyond maybe your summer internship or your previous experiences. So, Stephen, can you talk a little about the experiential learning opportunities at Tepper?
Sure. There's a few different ways to do that at Tepper. All of our students need to complete a capstone, depending on a track that they choose or a general path, but they still have a company-sponsored opportunity, just what you're describing, John. It's led by their faculty member. They work on teams. They present solutions. These are real-world problems that have been vetted, and so it's a great way for them to learn a lot of things: problem solving, teamwork, communication, dynamics between themselves and others, right? It's great. Beyond that, uh, case competitions seem to have, if anything, increased in numbers the past few years. So it's happening throughout their time. And so we work with our clubs and our programs office to try to align these opportunities and make sure there's coaching available and some supervision. But those are less structured than the capstones, but uh, it almost seems like an endless supply of case competitions are happening right now. Students may need to vet them for time management, right? And then we get into uh, course projects that aren't part of a capstone. We're working with more of our alumni on that as we go. It's a great way to bring the real world into the classroom. And that's happening in several of our elective courses as well.
Yep. And again, to the point where this gives you something to talk about with a concrete result with a potential employer. It adds to your desirability by that employer because you're talking about what you've learned and what you've done as opposed to what you studied. So that's really an important distinction. Lisa, what about experiential learning opportunities at Kenan-Flagler?
I'll start by highlighting our STAR program, which is what we call our main program that provides that experiential learning. It has a very long history of success for our MBA students and our undergraduate students. So it is designed for students who want to do strategy consulting type projects. And so those are all with an employer. Students have to be chosen to be in those classes, and then they are selected into teams by the STAR faculty. And then they all get to do exactly as you described, work on a real life project, and then present that to those organizations. That also provides an opportunity for certain students to be leaders of the undergraduate STAR projects. So there's a next layer that if someone also wants that true experience of managing a team that might be like an MBA associate managing an analyst, as they move into their careers, they can also, for course credit, supervise teams of undergrads or our Masters of Science in Management students as they do their STAR projects. So they can learn it themselves, and that's usually people who want to pivot will do the STAR project themselves to show they have that strategy. It's also a great way to work with a company that is US based if you're coming from another country to get that experience there, and then they can showcase leadership as well. We have a similar type of class for a venture capital class if someone is hoping to navigate into that space, which is very network based and quite difficult for anyone. But they get to work with venture capital firms to do the very similar thing, work on a project, present, and those are all for course credit. Outside of course credit, but still very experiential, we have several funds. We have a real estate fund and we have a private equity fund that's leading the fund that's managing real money and see what happens, right, across the course of a year. They also get to present to the companies that have been providing money for that fund or that are interested there. So they can do all of those things. Some, I would say, a little more finance focused, some a little bit more consulting strategy focused there. And then for anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur, we have several classes that they can work with startups to get coaching on their business idea, or they can spend time building out their business plan in a course, which is a different type of experiential learning for those students that are also trying to venture out to be business owners themselves.
Wow. Well, and I need to say, while it may or may not be obvious to some of you out there, that exposure to executives from other companies obviously leads to job opportunities as well. So, there are a fair number of job opportunities that come out of these projects and assignments that you might not ordinarily expect. So, not only the learning, but new doors open to you. Mikhail, give us your sense of experiential learning at Mendoza.
Sure. So you'll notice the branding here, but we do offer our Grow Irish Weeks, which are essentially a few weeks in between the first and second part of each semester, where students are able to gain those experiential learning opportunities. And we offer our Business on the Front Lines program, which is more like what Lisa mentioned, related to strategy and consulting, where students are working with real companies and organizations. This can be in local to South Bend. It can be, of course, here in the US, and then even some international opportunities. Many of these organizations or companies will either have a mission-driven project that students are able to work on, or the organization itself is mission aligned. And so students are able to give back and we say contribute to mankind while they are utilizing the business skill sets they are learning inside of the classroom. And so it's kind of another way that we're really able to contribute to our mission as a business school while also teaching students the skill sets they need to succeed. Another one of the experiential learning opportunities I will mention is our applied investment management program, which, like Lisa mentioned, is an opportunity for students to watch a fund grow over, of course, the supervision of our professor. who will be able to help students navigate that. Besides that, students will, of course, be able to go on different treks. And so we have a finance as well as tech treks that take place domestically as well as internationally, so that they are not only able to go on site and learn about these different organizations, but those are also opportunities to interview while they are technically in class, which is great.
Yeah, now a good number of people who are watching this are watching it from outside the United States. And I wondered if each of you might give international candidates some sense of how they can evaluate career outcomes across these programs. Um, Obviously, in the US right now, there's messaging that's not exactly conducive to welcoming international candidates. And we know that international applicants are way down, which also, frankly, is a great opportunity for those who do want to come because there's less competition. But Mikhail, let's start with you. What advice do you give international candidates about coming here and landing a job in the US after they graduate?
Sure. I think that knowledge is really your power here. So you can, of course, look at all of our career reports online, and kind of have an understanding of our placement for international students versus domestic students typically. I would also, maybe even ask where we're seeing international students land, right? And so there are some industries that might have more opportunity. Again, I'll say that this is ever evolving, right? This could look very different in 2 years after
Indeed.
graduating, but having an awareness of that as you're even going into the process of applying for business school is going to be very helpful to you to understand what the possibilities are. While, we of course want our international students to come here and have as many possibilities, um, opportunities available to them. We also want to set you up for success. And so coming in and having an understanding of what is available with our career report is kind of a good baseline for understanding which pathways might be best for you to pursue.
Yeah, and you mentioned 2 years. I'll just underline that and say, look, if you matriculate this fall and you come out of the program 2 years from now, you're going to see a very different U.S. than you've been seeing in the headlines this past year. Um, so I think this is a great time for international candidates to take advantage of a great MBA program. Lisa, your take on that, your advice to internationals?
Yes, I agree with you that it's a great time to come. Yes, we've had a lot of uncertainty over the last year or so, but from our just looking at our core employers, of which we have 60 or 70 that are our most active with those alumni champions, we have only seen three of them change their policies on hiring international students, even amongst all of the uncertainty. So I
Mm,
would say we see a lot of things in the news and there are a lot of decisions happening,
exactly.
but we have not seen that with a volume of companies actually changing their stance on recruiting. So I hope that that can be a calming, sense for international students considering balancing everything that they're reading and seeing, that we just really haven't seen companies shifting their policies as popular news media might indicate. So I think there are a lot of companies who still recognize the great talent that MBA programs bring, and especially our international applicants as well. And they need that, right? We are seeing rapid changes in growth in technology and backgrounds. And we know from all sorts of data that the US is not typically the number one producer of large volumes of graduates with those skills that then can pair with the MBA to mirror those. So we have seen, again, not huge changes across industries. Another thing I'll say is I often hear I can only recruit for the largest companies because they're the only companies that have the infrastructure to sponsor students. That is also not correct. Every company has the ability to sponsor students. And so what we often do in coaching is have those conversations about, you might want a big name brand and we can go for that. We know that those are all the most competitive for everyone, right? But you can get the same opportunity, the same exposure, often the same pay for a company that might be more mid-size in company, they still can sponsor and do sponsor, and there are resources to help students see what that is. So we do have a coach that's dedicated to international students to provide that extra level of support and knowledge and staying up to date. But again, all industries, we are still seeing sponsorship across. We haven't seen any, again, make that big scale change. But again, often it's that openness to, if I know the thing I want, as we've been talking about, there are definite ways to find that. I might just have to look at a few more companies than perhaps the ones I knew about before I came. And from our employment report, those are great starting points. Those obviously are static at a point in time based on how we all report information. So I will say for our class of 2025, 9 months post graduation, as we continue to look, the level of rates were exactly the same of international students where they've landed and US citizens. So we were at 96% of all of our class that was seeking, and there was no difference of who was still seeking at that time. So it might take a little longer than they would prefer, but our international students were successful in landing at equal rates to US citizens.
Stephen?
We saw that trend as well, Lisa. When we extended out the lens past the kind of required 3 months, they were dead even at the end of the 6 and the 9 month periods, which tells me good talent. There's a place for good talent all the time, right? I think a lot of companies with the kind of chaos in the news this past year might have hesitated, but then by the time the end of the hiring cycle came about, talent is talent. And so that's what we observed. But back to advice. Know your value prop. Understand the landscape. There's plenty of information out there. You want to make sure that you're relying on reliable information. Poets and Quants is a great source to weed through some of these things. So you're here already. So that's a good sign. What I would also say is you, as an international student, you have a narrower set of companies that are willing to hire you. That's true. That's always been true. Right? So what you need to do then is educate yourself on those spaces, which are largely areas like consulting and tech firms and to some extent financial services, big companies, right, who do historically hire. And then, as Lisa said, plenty of great stories to tell about small to mid companies that found the perfect candidate and educated themselves, or we helped to educate them on what they needed to do to sponsor. And it turned into a success story. So it's not a perfect straight linear path all the time, but it is a path and it does lead to success for folks. And we are invested in our international students' success, and we want them to become contributors to our U.S. economy, and we do everything we could do in our power to support them in that.
Stephen, a lot of applicants pay maybe even undue attention to school employment reports, and it's kind of understandable. I mean, you want to see where a school's graduates are headed and what kind of starting salaries they have. If I have a pet peeve about this whole thing, it's that people measure their ROI, sorry, on an MBA program based on starting salaries when that's just the beginning and the value of the degree unfolds over a far longer period of time. But what's your advice on how candidates should evaluate an employment report and even ROI when you're looking at an MBA?
Great question. The employment report is a snapshot in time of 1 year, right? And a few years ago, most of us were setting records with salaries and percentage employed. Fast forward a few years and kind of the post-COVID effects and other things, we weren't necessarily achieving those same numbers, but we were performing decently and comparably to each other. So it's a snapshot in time versus a picture of your future, right? I've been doing this for a long time now, so I have students I coached 20 years ago who come back in the C-suite now, and you see that careers are it's a 20, 30-year trajectory. You're not defined by one or two decisions that you make, right? It's difficult when you're under pressure to forget about that, right? But we certainly coach them on that and think about transferable skills, right? So employment reports are super helpful to me, I think, always from a perspective of, I really want this niche industry, whatever it is, energy, healthcare, something that's not among the top three we talked about. Your odds are probably greater than good to have the outcome you want if you focus on schools who have a pathway there,
Hmm.
right? Have a higher percentage of students who go into what I would consider like the next group down of industries, not by quality, but just by numbers, right? So that's where I think they're helpful. Where I don't think they're helpful is thinking that this is exactly going to look like your outcome, like you said earlier, 3 years from now. 3 years is like 10 years now, and you're not going to know what that looks like. Good education is consistent, and companies show over time, consistency as well, as much as possible. And, understand your talents, your skills, and where you want to go. Work with your coaching team at the school you decide to go to, and you'll be fine. If you put all that stuff off and just sort of flow through the first few months of your MBA, you're probably gonna come to a point of reckoning.
Lisa, your advice on how to read a school's employment report.
I agree with everything that's been said. I think the piece I'll add is take it as a way to start what questions I should ask admissions or what
Hmm.
questions I should dive
Right.
deeper in on a website, right? We all have all the stories that go behind the numbers, and certainly we partner with admissions and career services. If people can come to campus visits, you'll meet career services there to ask those questions because that's where you get the story behind the story, or what does it look like for an industry that I want that, is 8%, and how many people does that mean for this program and what are the resources? So I think it's actually a great launching point to what Stephen said about, how do I decipher amongst all of these excellent programs in terms of what my interest is, but then use it as a way to say, what companies does that represent? Why do you have such a high percentage there? What might that look like for me? And then that can help you start to figure out what is the right program for me, right? Because an MBA is a great degree. We have in the US many great options. So it's really that from that career lens, right? It's all about fit. That's what makes people find great jobs. And so use it to help you start to ask questions to find your fit so that you really can maximize your MBA journey.
Yep, all good advice. Mikhail, your last words.
Of course, I echo what my colleague said. I will extend this piece about the career report and extend it to the network. When thinking about return on investment, you really want to be a part of an MBA program where you're looking back 20 years from now and really excited to be a part of that community. And so, just kind of jumping off from their career report, it might be important for you to ask questions about being put in contact with members of their community who are part of those industries or who are studying currently at the program so that you can learn a little bit more about their experience, their career growth, and how their network has impacted their career success. And so, even if you're not necessarily seeing the numbers in the exact industry that you're interested in, it means something if your admissions officer or someone else from the school community is able to put you in contact with someone who has been a part of that industry.
Very good. Hey, listen, thank you all for an excellent session. Stephen from Carnegie Mellon's Tepper School of Business, Lisa, of course, from UNC Kenan-Flagler Business School, and Mikhail from Notre Dame University's Mendoza College of Business. I want you to have one big takeaway from our session, and it's really obvious, but let me put it out there, okay? What you've heard today is the extraordinary amount of support an MBA student and graduate gets to land the career of their choice. Again, there's no other school in the university that puts as much attention, that devotes as much effort, and not only from the career professionals at the school, but from the alumni, from the second years, from the companies that sponsor and support these schools. It's an enormous advantage that people have when they go to a top MBA program. And if you take anything from this session, take that because that is invaluable. Hey, thanks for watching today. Check in to our other Center Court panels. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants.